Hello and welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. I'm Captain Rick Riles. Hey, we got a fun little adventure for you this afternoon. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to make a very quick trip out to Costa Rica to check in at Nosara Paradise and find out how the marlin bite's been this week. I love my fantasy fishing spot, I'm going to tell you what. And then we will hit Florida. We're going up to the northeast corner to check in with David Voorhees. Weather's been pretty good there this week. Work our way down the east coast, through the Keys, up the west coast, and out the Panhandle, getting the reports from each inlet from the premier fishermen there. And I got a question for the offshore boys tonight. Oh, we might have some for the inshore guys too, but my main question is, we've all got to use descending devices now, and a lot of people don't even know what they are. I want to know what the pros are using and how well they like them, how they feel they're improving a fish's odds of survival when you let it go. The Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast is brought to you this week and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Tournament Master Chum. Oh, it's the best chum on earth, all right. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. By Young Boats. You want the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrids? You need to check out youngboats.com. By the Castaway Hat Company. That's the hat that's helping save our seas. And by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Right stuff, low price, every day. So let's get it rolling. It's time for a quick trip to Nosara, Costa Rica to check in with one Craig Sutton. That means it's time to check in with the purveyor of all things fishing in Nosara, Costa Rica, one Craig Sutton from Nosara Paradise. Craigie, how are you?
I'm good, Ricky. Real good, sir.
Good.
Had a good week in Costa Rica. A couple big marlin releases.
Oh!
Sent you the video of that one. That was a nice fish, buddy. That was a nice one.
Craig, what do you think the biggest marlin you ever let go of over there was?
Ooh, that's a good question. Me personally, I've had a couple of them. I think were in that 600-pound range. I had one stood up on his tail about 10 feet out the back of the boat. I got the hook to him, but I think he was an 800 or 900-pound fish. He was a monster fish. And we got about 4 jumps out of him before the line broke. But I've seen, and I don't care who you're talking to, and I don't care where in the world you're talking to, you don't catch the big ones unless it's just purely, truly lucky. I mean, and anybody tells you they catch granders, I'm sorry. I have my doubts. Because there's big fish. You got to be perfect, and the fish has got to make 2 or 3 mistakes. But where the 300 and 400 pounders, you got to be perfect, and the fish got to make 1 or 2 mistakes. But it's a different animal.
Craigie, it absolutely warms my heart to hear you say that, and I'll tell you the reason why. You know how many years I fished Marsh Harbor and off of the point down there, and that is one of the legendary spots for big fish. And we caught a big fish. We caught a fish with a body length of 13 feet. How big she was, I don't know, but I know she's the biggest one I ever caught. Okay, Craig, we had some that I knew from the outset we were never in the game.
No, I'm with you. I've had a couple of them like that myself that we just, he happened to hit a 30-pound main line on a TLD 30, and I'm like,
and you never had a chance.
Real close.
Yep.
You didn't. You're so undergunned, it's not even funny.
I know it, but I refuse to pull the big giant, the 80 wides. I don't even like to pull 50 wides. I don't like to, Craig, because I want to enjoy a 25-pound dolphin.
I'm with you, but see, in our area, that's just not an option.
Well, I know.
Clear water.
I know.
I mean, you could. There's a handful of days that you can pull lures and be successful. I'm talking about pulling lures with a 10 or 11-aught hook on 150-pound mono. Nothing like the 300 or 400-pound mono everybody else pulls them with. you won't even think about getting a strike on that heavier stuff. But but even then, it's just certain times of the year, overcast, water not really cobalt blue, but it's just, we're a different fishery, and I have to explain. I mean, it's like I get the guys want a vertical jig. Bring it on. We'll vertical jig till we're blue in the face.
Till your arms
but
fall off. Yep.
You're going to catch small fish.
Yeah.
You can take that same vertical jig tied, whether you want to step it down on fluorocarbon leaders and whatever, and you take the same spot, same day, same time, and put a nice big live bait down there, bridled up nice, and you'll catch that 90-pound cabera where, with the jigs, you might catch a 15-pound cabera. It's a different fishery.
No, I agree with you only in the regard that I know that we got an awful lot more marlin bites using a select ballyhoo with a sea witch on a 150-pound mono leader than a lot of the boats did that were pulling those big Brazilianos and all that stuff. And we're still able to enjoy a 25-pound dolphin or an ice wahoo or something. Just an easier way to fish. But it was solid down there all week, huh?
Well, we had a couple, every once in a while we'll have these hiccup days. And a lot of them are people that want to save $100 and, go 5 hours versus 8 or 6.5. And I tell them right now the good productive water is about 20 miles out. And there are some days that we'll lose the schools. And fortunately, having 4 or 5 boats in the water helps. But, we can't get to where the good water's at. I had a real good group down there last week during that full moon. And the guy was telling me, he said, well, he thought they were off because of the moon. I said, well, it's not so much the moon, it's the amount of current.
Right.
And once we get past 4 or 5 knots of current, it's just, they don't bite very good.
Give me that 2 to 3.5. You got it dead on, Cap.
Yep.
That's the way I love it. Craigie, that's a great report. Now, for you guys, it's all up from here on out, isn't it? Doesn't it just get better all the way from now through August?
Yeah, it will have a little bit of a, slow down next month in March, and it might get spotty for a few days. But, I'm still amazed this year at our mahi bite.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just been super consistent. We had a 6 mahi day last week, 8 mahi day with sailfish and marlin mixed in. So, but it's normally it'll slow up a little bit in March, and then April will turn into basically just. Oh, by the way, the wahoo. You got to see all the wahoo we've been catching the last 2 weeks.
How about that?
Tell you that, man. I forgot on our Saturday radio report. My gosh, we've caught some nice ones. Now, they clip us off a lot with that mono in the water, but yeah, we've had a couple 30, 40 pounds, fat wahoo.
Good.
Yeah. So
good deal.
But it should slow up a little bit in March and then April, and then come May, it'll get crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Oh, buddy, I hope to be there this summer. All right. Thank you, Craigie. We appreciate it. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Absolutely. I'll be looking forward to it.
Thank you, buddy. Captain Craig Sutton. All right, thanks to Craig Sutton for a great Nosara report. Time to hit Florida. Let's stop in the northeast corner and check in with one David Voorhees. Hey, David, pretty good weather here the last few days, right?
Absolutely gorgeous. Man, what a beautiful week. Everything lined up for me perfectly. I had that high tide in the middle of the day, which gave me an outgoing tide and gave me that low tide late in the evening, which is what I tend to like this time of year and when the water's cold. So we had some really good bites, some really strong bites this week on that outgoing tide. And we did some of our best work on that high outgoing when the fish were up on the mud flats and cruising the grass lines and stuff like that. We did okay on the dead low tides, but it seemed like on the dead low tides, they were moving into those deeper holes in the creek. and we ended up doing pretty good there. Had a few really nice flounder this week, several nice trout. There's been some reports, some really good, strong reports of the yellowmouth trout or the silver trout in the St. Johns River, and a lot of the guys are catching them, around the white shell, around that part of the St. Johns River. And then even south and towards St. Augustine, there's been some really, really good reports of guys catching some trout just around the airport down there. But the thing is it on the trout is you have to go find them, and they seem to be located in certain pockets where they're not going to be in like normal where they've been in all the good spots. You almost gotta hit all your spots, but if you find one that's holding good trout, you'll end up doing pretty good. The sheephead, haven't gotten a lot of reports on the sheephead. To me, it sounds like 1 week they do good, and then 1 week I don't hear much. Are you hearing anything, Rick, from guys catching the sheephead offshore?
Very spotty, David. Now let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. It's still a little bit early. It'll be the moon.
Yeah, I know.
It'll be the moon next month.
When the weather gets like this, it's easy to get ahead of ourselves.
It is.
Oh, it's springtime, but no, it's still wintertime.
David, it kind of helps us to remember that there's somebody in charge of all these migrations and everything, and it's not us, whether we want to be or not. And I think we're going to see better offshore sheepshead fishing in March and April. But I got to be straight up honest with you. The fall bite just didn't impress me very much. I'm a little concerned about our numbers on sheepshead. I think we have to watch them and be careful to protect those spawning fish for the future. They're getting tagged pretty good when the boats can get offshore in the springtime.
Now, Rick, rumor has it I heard some blue marlin being caught. What's up with that?
The wahoo fishing has been spotty, but there's been some very unusual catches on the high speed. Generally, high speed trolling is all wahoo. If you get a bite, it may be a big amberjack. Normally, it's a wahoo, and almost nothing else. But in the last week, I have heard of numerous sailfish and one blue marlin, and I've seen a few, David, and this one looks to me like to be in the 350, 400 pound range, was caught by Captain Frank Vining, one of the high speeders. And that's fantastic. We don't see that very often, particularly in our area, but we're not short on blue marlin. I'll say it till I go to my grave. We are short on blue marlin fishermen. For whatever reason, 30 years ago, maybe 40 years ago now, when the blue marlin thing started here, everybody did it. And if they drug those big lures around all day and they got a strike from a blue marlin, that was a good day. Nobody's willing to do that anymore, so we don't get very many people blue marlin fishing. Blue marlin have become an incidental bycatch by guys fishing for other things. But the spring fishing for the blue water started out good. There's plenty of tuna, and there's a handful of wahoo and a little bigger handful of mahi than we're used to. But all in all, I think things are pretty good offshore, David, and I think they sound like they're pretty good. The sea bass season, in fact, has been exceptional. It has stayed good all the way from early December through right now. So it's a better migration of them than we've seen. So I'm pretty optimistic as to spring, David. I hope you are too.
I am too. I think we're going to have some great red fishing this season. I'm so happy that we went back to the one fish per person. That really, all the anglers, all the inshore captains that I talked to, they're all happy that the state decided to go back to one fish per person.
And David, I wanted to make sure I thanked you again for helping with the Fishing with Fighters. I know you took a young man from the Proton Center out last week and showed him the time of his life.
Fantastic, Rick. They were from Canada, and just a great father and son combination. The boy was 12 years old, and I tell you, Rick, I told you I want to always do these. You keep me going, because doing things like this helps keep me keeps my feet on the ground. So I really know where, keep things in perspective. And to get the little message, I sent you the message the father sent me.
Yep.
But to have the little boy say this was the most fun he's had since he's been here, that was it, man. You couldn't have given me enough money. That was worth more than what I'd have gotten paid for a charter there. Buddy.
That's it, Cap. There's no fun in what they're going through. And if we can help them a little bit, let's get right on it. I know that's exactly how a lot of our combat veterans feel, too. They're going through a war every day. If they can spend a day on the water with us fighting fish, doesn't get any better than that. Cap, we appreciate it as always. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
I'll be here, Rick.
Captain David Voorhees from Northeast Florida. The year was 1953 when one of the true pioneers of big game fishing just hung it up. No, it wasn't any of our podcasters. It was none other than Ernest Hemingway. I just don't want to do it anymore, he's credited with saying. The tackle has become so sophisticated, the fish just don't have a chance. Can you imagine walking him through the aisles of Strike Zone Fishing and showing him the latest and greatest from Shimano? Can you imagine handing him a Saragusa spinner that weighs less than his bait did and could put more torque on a rampaging tuna than the giant old reels of his day? No, Ernest, I'm afraid you left us way too early. The fights with great fish still go on today, and sometimes we still get beat. But if I were a sea monster of your day, I think I'd still rather do battle with you than face the tools that Shimano has stocked in Strike Zone Fishing 68 years later. Our thanks to David Voorhees for a great Northeast report. East Central Time, let's check in with Jimmy Ross. Jimmy, what's happening on the Space Coast, buddy?
It's doing pretty good. The weather's getting really good this week, and we're looking forward to getting out and running a bunch of trips after that weekend blow.
I got you. Have you been out at all?
Not since Thursday. It's been a couple of days now. Fortunately, Friday I had a little bit of a cancellation issue, and then Saturday and Sunday was a complete and total washout.
Yeah.
But Monday kicked in again, and the guys that got out today, especially the afternoon time frame, the weather settled down, got really pretty, and the middle of the day right now with that major feeding time being in that mid-afternoon period has been pretty good. The guys caught some fish today, especially out on the flat, deeper holes, and cruised up on the shallows. So that seems to be the ticket right now is, early morning it's a little cool and those fish want to drop into the holes, and in the afternoons they get active and run around.
All right, Jim, let me ask you something. When we get to this time of year, do you find that tide is real important? Do you need that low tide in the middle of the day to warm that mud up?
Well, we don't have a lot of mud like the Northeast area would have. Mm-hmm. We have more sand. And, of course, the Indian and Banana River lagoons and the south end of the Mosquito don't have any tide in them at all. So, really, the tide only affects from about Oak Hill up to New Smyrna in the north end of the region, and then from about a little bit south of Melbourne, sort of towards the Grant or Nico area, down to Sebastian and Wabasso, and then on through Vero. That's where the rest of the tide happens. But this time of the year, the tide in the flats doesn't seem to be as critical as it is at other times of the year.
I see.
Simply because the warmth seems to be a better option, and without mud to warm and bake in the sun and then have water flood back over it, because our tides just aren't that extreme, we don't seem to be as critical on tide. It's more moon position or lighting.
That makes perfect sense to me. Absolutely. You get a bright sun on shallow water, and it's going to warm up quicker. I understand.
It warms up nice and fast. Yep.
Hey, Jim, let me ask you real quick, because we're running long as usual. You have to use a descending device on your offshore bottom fishing trips now. What do you use?
That is correct. Now, we have been using the Sequelizer version.
Okay.
So now here's one of the things that we found in our particular situation. We're running bay boats. Myself and my son Justin are running bay boats, and we generally don't really go past the 90-foot mark. But what we've found is that most of the fish that are 60 feet or shallower, we don't need the device.
Right.
We let them go and they're gone. They take off. It's those fish from, say, 65-ish feet out to that 90-foot bar, which is our maximum that we run. Those are the fish that need help. Now, there's two things that you can do. One is use a descending device, or two, and this is the harder thing to do, is to reel the fish up rather slowly so that it doesn't get barotrauma. The snapper, in many cases, what Justin and I do is we actually chum them up and get them up in the water column. And then when they hit, they're only about 15 feet, maybe 20 feet down. So we try to stop them, obviously, before they get back down to that, say, 70 or 90-foot reef ledge. And most of the time, one or two things happen. One, we're successful. Two, we're not. On those that we're not, it's because those fish are 20, 25, 30-pound snapper, and you just don't have the capacity when you're using relatively light leaders. You don't have the capacity to stop those big fish. The drag that it takes to stop them, actually, normally you end up just popping the line because the fish is exerting more pressure than what you can, than what the line will hold. In the cases where they're down just a little deeper and we're not using, say, 50-pound test leader, we're using 60 or 80, then it's all about the angler. You've got the gear heavy enough to pull the fish out of the way, but can the angler do it? So it's all about your skill set of your angler at that point. But either way, if we do get those fish up and out of the holes, out of those reefs and wrecks, and they don't want to go down, you can tell real easily if they're going to go down or not. If they're swelled up, they're not going. They're not going down, so there's no sense in releasing them. You got to put them on a descending device. And the sequelizer, what we do is we set it at 50 feet. And we put them back down at 50, and then they can make their way down from there. We don't put it all the way down, like at the 90 or 100-foot depth that we're in. We don't put it all the way down there because a lot of times if you drag that fish straight to the bottom, there's sharks sitting there waiting on them. And the shark's going to eat that fish. So if you let him down halfway and then let him make his way down to the reef from there, we feel like it's a better option for the fish if we're not going to keep that fish.
Gotcha. Excellent lesson, my boy. We appreciate it ever so much, Jimmy. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
I look forward to it next week, Rick.
Thank you so much. Captain Jim Ross from East Central. Now, let's head on down to the Dean of Miami Charter Boat Captains himself, Captain Ray Rocher. Ray, how are you?
Hey, Rick. How are you doing, buddy?
Hey, you sound like you're in the Dominican Republic.
How did you know?
Golly, I must be good.
Yeah, well, I'll be home tomorrow. I'm not that far.
You're getting like me now. Back when I was traveling so hard, I'd wake up and stop and think, okay, where am I? Wait, where is this? I
had that moment this morning.
I have them. I sure do. Tell me how the fishing's been this week.
Actually, sail fishing picked up. We fished a couple days ago. We were 3 for 4. Saw another fish or two. Actually had a great white swim by the boat while we were fighting the sail, and caught a few other odds and ends. And the boys have been fishing every day since then, and averaging 3 to 6 sails. It seems like it's been the best of it each day, and a handful of other fish, kings, dolphin, etc. So it's not bad. It's not double digits, but it's certainly good fishing. We're not complaining.
Ray, I need to ask you a question because everything's changed up here in Northeast Florida over the last 20 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
How many of your charters right now want to target sailfish?
I would say more than half.
Really?
2 out of 3. Actually, almost every group wants to catch, wants to do it for at least a little while. And then if it's not, they're not biting or whatever, we always switch over to something else. It's the best part of South Florida fishing. We have several options in the course of almost every day of the year. There's different seasons for different things, from dolphins, sails, kings, tilefish, amberjacks, yellowtails, muttons. It's just a wide variety, which is really what I love about fishing down here.
You know what's so funny is up here 20 years ago, probably maybe 30 years ago, everybody was in love with sailfish and how many flags you could come in with and yada, yada, yada. And then this high-speed Wahoo thing took over. And a friend of mine was anchored in 140 feet the other day, and he saw like 8 floppers around him and 1 or 2 cutters. And he got in and he called me and he said, I had to call you. Nobody else cares about sailfish but you anymore. And I thought, that may be true because it's all wahoo up here, buddy.
Yeah, well, I never get tired of a sailfish.
No, me neither. Me neither. Thank you. I'm glad to know I'm not the only one. Hey, Ray,
You're not alone.
With your bottom fishing, you guys we've all had to go to these descending devices. Which ones do you use?
Right. Number one choice is Sequelizer. They have a really great product. It's very corrosion resistant and seems to work consistently, meaning I've never had a fish come back up, You drop it down to you adjust your depth. Obviously, you might be fishing 100 feet or 1,000 feet, so you need something that's adjustable. And that Sequelizer really does a good job at that.
Now, would you even try and drop a snowy, say, back down in 500 or 600 feet?
Absolutely. Now, if his scales are blown up and his eyeballs are half out of his head, I don't know if that's going to really help him. But one thing's for sure, if you don't do it, he certainly is not going to make it.
Huh? But you think some of them do make it if you drop them down that deep, huh?
Well, the interesting thing is a buddy of mine using a Sequelizer put a camera. I think Hooker Electric has a camera that goes very deep water, and they pointed a camera down the line, dropped it, and this snowy grouper swam off like it was just perfect. I couldn't believe it. But it was real video, and he just started off like he just got hooked,
That's fascinating. That's way cool. That is outstanding.
Yeah, if you go to the Hooker Electric website and Sequelizer, you'll probably be able to see some of those videos. They've videoed a bunch of fish, and obviously this is what it took for them to gain traction in the market for both the camera and the descending device.
Well, I did go on the Sequelizer site, and you're absolutely right. And I got the feeling where we fish, Ray, I think there's an awful lot of sharks on the bottom. For me, in 100 feet of water, I'm setting mine for like 70 feet. And I think if we let them go at least a little bit above all that madness on the bottom, they might have a better shot. Do you see any validity to that?
I agree with you.
Okay.
I really do.
Okay, good deal. Cap, be careful coming home, and next week we'll be talking about sailfish.
Okay, good deal. I'll be here.
Thank you, Ray. Captain Ray Rocher of the Miss Brit. I'll bet you don't even remember the days that all us cool kids would rub baby oil mixed with iodine to help us get even darker in the summertime. Being burnt was cool, and even if you weren't a surfing legend, you sure looked the part. Oh, man, if a bunch of us old guys paid the price for our vanity. We never knew the skin problem and health damage that awaited us. Today's fishermen have the options of being so much healthier in the sun than we ever thought of. Thanks in no small part to the Castaway Hat Company, who not only provides our podcasters with Castaway straw hats, but they make the coolest prints on the underside of the brims you ever saw. You may think your bimini top or T-top blocks the sun, but as an awful lot of us OGs can tell you, you can't have enough protection from sun damage. Do what we do. Put on the sunblock and put on your Castaway straw hat. You'll look the part of today's best anglers, and you'll even be helping the environment. That's because for each Castaway hat sold, the Castaway Company is going to pay to have 1 pound of trash removed from our waterways. The burning Florida sun won't be raced in your skin, and believe me, when you age a few years, you'll thank us old guys with a lifetime on the water. So go to CastawayHatCo.com and get your best sun protection today. The Castaway Hat Company. They've got a hat for every adventure. Our thanks to Ray Rocher for all the news from Miami, where the sailfish bite has picked up. Now let's cross over to 10,000 Islands and check in with the mayor of each one of those islands, Captain Steve Dahl. Steve, how are you?
Well, we're doing fantastic, Rick. How about yourself?
Good. It's warm up here. Feels good, buddy.
Yeah, it's starting to warm up down here as well, so that's a good thing.
So are we going to call this winter stronger than last year? I think so.
Stronger in what sense?
I think it was colder. I think it was colder this year.
Yeah, I do. It was definitely. We had definitely some cold snaps, and that kind of kept the water temp down a little bit. But we've had a lot of bright sunny days in recent weeks, so we're kind of back to normal. We got lots of good water temps in the 70s, and that's that magic number for me, at least, low 70s, and everything seems to be in play, when that water temp hits that number. So, some good highlights. What's up?
It ain't springtime yet, but I can see it from here, Cap.
Oh, it's here. Yeah, no doubt. It's definitely around the corner. I mean, if it stays this warm, it wouldn't shock me if we got some tarpon migrating in March, which would be kind of cool. But for now, it's we've been pompano fishing.
Yeah?
I love pompano. Yeah, we're catching, some really, really nice pompano. And seems to be getting better by the day. So I don't anticipate that dying off anytime soon. We got really clean water, which they love, and sandy areas, right outside the passes. Big Marco Pass has them, and it's been really good. Get a jig on the bottom and start hopping it. You're gonna get bit.
Now,
so
do you guys bait fish for them at all, or do you strictly jig them?
We do. Sometimes we like to jig, if I got guys on board that can kind of do that cadence, which can be a little difficult, for some people. We're going to go that route just because you're going to cover so much more water and efficiently, fish it. If not, you can kind of drag an egg sinker with 12 to 15 inch leader, 2-aught circle hook with a shrimp on it. And, you'll get them that way as well. But boy, there's so much of a reactionary fish, and that bite is so intense, For a fish that small, they just dump those jigs. So it's pretty good. So that's kind of what we've been up to, getting the, focusing on some pompano. There's, plenty of trout in the area as well. If you're looking, that makes some real good table fare between the two of those. And the sheepshead bite's starting to thin out a little bit, at least from the big fish. So we're kind of done, kind of doing that. We kind of do that on the, nearshore wrecks and reefs. And, but those big fish, seem to kind of thin out, come February. So we're kind of in that mode right now. But, we had a real good season of those. So that's good.
You say you did have a good sheepshead season? Because up here it hadn't been real good.
Yeah, it was really good, man. It was, it was bigger bigger fish are around. And, I think we thin them out a little bit, or they spawn at this time, and I think once they're done spawning, they're definitely not in our area. I can tell you that. I've heard some thinned out ones being caught a little bit further out, so maybe those fish migrate out a little bit deeper, to recover from the spawn. But that's kind of what we're those three fish, in the, December, January, February, those are kind of the table fare fish for us down here. And, we attack them pretty good.
Any sign of cobia?
Yeah, we are. It's kind of hit or miss, but man, when you get on them, they're plentiful. And, they're not all that big. There's some keeper lower slot fish, just over, but, those big giants, we're just not seeing those. Which is okay. I'd rather see some of those juvenile fish, but, I'm measuring more fish than I ever have. Let's put it that
sure.
way.
Yeah.
There's never any, there's not a lot of those no doubters, that are hitting the deck, but they're around, for sure. And, we're catching them in all areas of the water column. And, I've even had some reports of some guys catching them really, really shallow, which we really don't get a lot. Like Tampa Bay gets that on the flats, a little bit of Pine Island gets that, but we don't really get those super, super shallow. And guys, fishing for reds and snook, kind of beating the bushes. A couple guys have caught some cobia. So maybe I gotta be a little bit more in tune when I'm doing that.
But might be overshooting them a little bit.
Yeah, we really might be, and nature finds a way. So maybe that's they're not big ones being caught inshore, but there've been enough catches that I've heard of that makes me wonder, are we missing something? And again, that's one of the beauties I love about fishing, because there's always a new puzzle to solve. So.
Outstanding, Cap. We appreciate it as always. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Oh, I can't wait, Rick.
Thanks, Steve. Captain Steve Dahl from 10,000 Islands.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalu marine engine oils.
What?
Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalu full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalu marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is a mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to its name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with Menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to you second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master Chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore-offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. Our thanks to Steve Dahl for great 10,000 report. Now, let's move up into Southwest Florida to Snook Stamp Charters, Captain Greg Stamper. Greg, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Rick.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. I want to hear a fishing report from Southwest Florida.
All right. It's been the usual suspects. We had some cold weather, but the trout were plentiful pretty much everywhere throughout the bay. We got them over the grass flats and 2 to 4 feet of water using the normal stuff, shrimp with popping corks and some artificial shrimp under them as well. And there was quite a few ladyfish involved. So we went through some shrimp on that trip. And then on our docks and our bays early in the morning, we're getting a lot of sheepshead. They're not big. They're small. The guys who have been fishing on the rock piles and our nearshore stuff have seemed to have done better on some size. And they've also picked up a few triple tail that were decent. No big boys, but some fish that were in the probably 5, 6, 7 pound class. So some good eating fish for those guys that were out front. Now, I did get a chance one day to do some red fishing. Nothing that was crazy big, but we did catch a few nice fish that were in the 18 to about 22 inch range. And we caught 4 or 5 in one or two areas. So it's really good to see those small fish. We didn't catch any of the big boys, but the water was a little muddy, and we didn't really get a chance to fish any places that had clean water. Hopefully this week, after things calm down wind-wise, we'll see some clean water come back into our bays, and then I can target those big ones again.
I see. I'll be darned. Well, that sounds awfully good. Now, do you do much with pompano this time of year?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we did pick a few of those guys up, even in the muddy water. I think every once in a while you get lucky, and that jig just happens to swim by their face, and they pick it up. And for us, it's kind of neat because if we're fishing them in tight areas like some of our local passes, if one person hooks one, usually somebody else does too, because they're swimming in schools, and the schools could have 10, 15 of them in it. And they're not the giant ones. These fish are probably they're all legal. You're getting anything that's 12 inches at the fork, 13, maybe 14. And we did get 1 or 2 fish this entire last week that were probably in that 4.5 to 5 pound range.
Ooh, that's big ones. That's real big ones.
Yeah.
Now, Greg, it's my impression that over the last 6, 7 years, pompano have slightly gotten, ever so slightly, every year, just a little bit better. Doesn't it seem like we're in pretty good time for pompano?
Yeah, it does. This is the time of year, too, for them. The key for me, Rick, though, the days when I know it's going to be really good is when we get that nice green water where maybe I'm in, say, 4 feet of water or 5 feet of water near our passes out front, and I can see the bottom. That's when the fishing is the best for those pompano. But they will get in that cloudy water from time to time. We saw that exact thing this week where, it wasn't clean, but it wasn't muddy until it got windy, and then it got, really muddy. So overall, the pompano fishing the last few years has been really good. And we're going to have good pompano fishing for probably, 2 more months, maybe 3 more months. And at that point, every once in a while you'll see schools on the beaches while you're trying to sight fish snook, and you can actually sight fish our pompano that way as well.
Gotcha. Outstanding. All right, well, that's a great report. We appreciate the heck out of it, Greg, and please tell me we can check with you next week.
You got it. Talk to you later, Rick.
Thanks a lot. Captain Greg Stamper from Southwest Florida. Now let's move into West Central and check in with none other than Ray Markham. Ray, how are you?
Fantastic. Tired. It's been a long week today.
Yeah, a lot of fishing?
No, not a lot of fishing, a lot of sitting and watching the wind blow.
Woo, yes, sir, it has.
Oh, my. But, I know there's a couple of guys that have been out, and they're still racking the sheep's head off the piers and whatnot and the bridges. And that's pretty much the most of what's going on this whole week. There's still some guys that are, sneaking out in some of those sheltered bays and finding some trout and a few redfish and whatnot. I haven't really heard a lot of guys doing much with snook this last week. And as far as guys getting offshore, I think there was maybe one day they could have gotten out.
Yeah.
But I heard nothing. So, there were so many cancellations from people I talked with this week and some of my own, and it's just, just waiting for the better window to open.
Yeah, Ray, that's this time of year, and we can't fuss about it too much. If we get a few days in February, that's pretty darn good. I mean, it's just not the time of year, especially Tampa Bay. You guys are so wide open, and when there's and we see a lot of northwest wind this time of year, and that's just got to really be tough on you guys over there. But it won't be long now. Real quick before you go, have you had a better sheep's head season? Because over on this side, it hadn't looked very good for us, Ray.
Well, it's been, I can't say it's been bad. It's been better than average. The guys that have really targeted them, they're still getting 4 to 6 pound fish.
Good.
And ain't nothing shabby about that.
No.
So, but I see some guys that do target them on a regular basis, and every time they go there, they're getting a bunch of fish. So now, I can't say it's been bad.
Now, are those guys fishing offshore? Are they in the bay? Where are they?
Well, a combination. Where a lot of guys that I know fish out of, they go out of the mouth of Tampa Bay, so they can hit the Skyway Bridge and all the pilings there. They can hit some of those artificial reefs that are close in. And even inside Tampa Bay, there's several piles of rocks that, I say rocks, it's all rubble from the old Skyway, that if they know where they are and they got them marked, then it's dead to rights. They're going to get some fish there.
Game on.
I know there's some places just on the south side of the Skyway where there's a lot of rubble that was dropped. And I knew some guys that lived right down the street from me when I was on Terracea that would do nothing but get a bunch of fiddler crabs and go out and they would get a limit of fish every single day. And they're only down here for the wintertime. They'd freeze everything and take it back north with them.
Yep. Yep. Well, I'll bet you about, let's see, this is February. I bet you about June that would have a little crust on it. All right, Raymond, we appreciate it as always. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
You betcha.
Captain Ray Markham from West Central. Hey, it's finally fall, and how many of us have been waiting for the magic of the mullet run to start? There are literally miles of mullet moving along just about every area of Florida coastline. What you need to cash in on the tarpon, snook, reds, trout, sharks, etc. that are feeding on the poor fingerlings is the perfect mullet imitation. Well, for my money, you can skip all the high-dollar made-in-China mullet imitators. For me and all the podcasters I've talked with, the perfect mullet imitation is made right here in Stuart, Florida, and it's the D.O.A. Bait Buster. Mark Nichols, the owner and manufacturer of D.O.A., spent years designing different bait busters to swim shallow, medium, or deep. What makes the bait buster so special? I'll tell you what I think. I think it's the tail. If your bait buster is moving, the tail is flapping. No predator can stand that tail flapping in his face. The D.O.A. Bait Buster. It's the perfect mullet run bait. Our thanks to Ray Markham for a great West Central report. Now we're going to move up into the Big Bend, where we're going to be launching a food drive for the Tony family. Because not only did William not kill a deer this year, he also got skunk squirrel hunting today. How are you, Cap?
I'm hungry. I'm out here at the food ranch in English, panhandling. So far, I've got some peanut butter crackers and a pack of matches, and I might survive tonight.
Well, go by Young Boats and knock on the door and tell them I told him to give you a package of hog, because there's some sausage there in the freezer that you could have some. Okay. I promise.
Okay, good. I'll sweep out the shop and everything.
Tell me about your fishing, William.
Well, it ain't been too bad on the Big Bend, but it has to depend on the weather and the fronts. And basically right now, everybody's catching some nice trout, and they're all on the edge, like any deep creek, mouths of the river, or anywhere there's a transition of a hole that goes from 8 to 2 foot. Somewhere along the edge of that, especially when the sun's out, that's where you're going to get your trout. And I've been using a D.O.A 5.5-inch glow jerk bait nose hook, so you can fish it real shallow. Been getting a few pompano, and I always tell people, I put it in my report, that if you Google Earth the Big Bend area, especially around Citrus County, right before you see a lot of big creeks go into the Gulf of Mexico, you'll see dark blue spots. Those dark blue spots are old springs or deep pockets, and that's where we've been getting the pompanos.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Now, most of the places we've talked to today have said pompano have been pretty good this year. You agree with that?
It's on average, and it's not like we catch them throughout the year. It's more of a bycatch, but like January, February, and early March, for some reason, especially we get a big front, like we had a huge tide last night, and I think it pushes them in there. And I can tell you, if you get to one of those holes and you're catching ladyfish or get cut off by Spanish mackerel or bluefish, there are pompano in there. And a lot of times chumming right next to the boat, you can get them right over there. And the holes will range anywhere. Some of the deeper ones I fish are 30 feet. Some of the shallow ones are about 12 feet. But I like to chum a little next to the boat. And you'll get them right up there next to the boat. And you don't have to catch. You just kind of throw it out on an outgoing tide. And when you see that swirling water and that rip line forming, that's right where you want to put the bait.
Well, how about that? Okay. Are your sheep's head are they ramping up, or are they getting better right now?
Right now it's starting to wrap up. Most of the small fish, I've talked to all our guides around here, are being caught like on the shallow rocks up toward Krista River. But if you head a little south toward Hernando County or offshore deeper, say 12 to 15 feet, been getting some nice sheep set out there. But we had a real good push the last full moon, but it always tapers off about February, and we look for March to swing around, and we can start looking for some snooks.
Okay, buddy. Hey, listen, if you run some fried squirrel, I strongly suggest a new hunting partner for you.
Well, you know what? I got a beautiful bird feeder in my backyard, and they really love it there. And I thought about it. I have really thought about it, but I can't shoot pets.
You can't shoot them off the bird feeder, William. That ain't right. Cap, we appreciate it. We'll talk with you next week.
We'll see you next week.
Captain William Toney. Now, let's head up into Northwest Florida. That's where the purveyor of KC's Sport Fishing Adventures, I referred to it as K2 last week. I apologize to you, Captain Kevin Lanier. How are you?
That's all right, Captain Rick. I know what happens as we get older. That's okay.
Had to break out the old card, didn't you? Whew, I tell you. That 70th birthday's been a doozy now. I ain't kidding you.
Oh, yeah.
Well, talk to me. Tell me about your fishing.
Well, fishing's been pretty good when we can get one. The weather was nasty this weekend,
yes,
so we didn't
get
out. Nobody got out, but still the inshore stuff's been really good. The sheep's head are starting to show up a little bit more. There's a few more pompano out there. The guys that are fishing from the beach are catching some nice fish. So, there's fish to be had, but we got to let the water clear up for a couple days.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, that's not bad. We're getting into it. Now, when do you open? What's your next season that opens?
We got triggers and amberjack coming up in March, April, and May.
Okay, so you don't have far to go to. How many triggers do you get to keep?
Oh, one. One.
Oh, God, that's so dumb. Kevin,
right.
That's just so dumb. That's
about as dumb as your red snapper.
Yeah, it is. It is. That's why I told you, and I wouldn't trade you either because I'd rather eat a trigger than I would a red snapper.
Oh, I agree with you.
Hey, while we're catching red snapper, which we all catch almost every time we drop a bait to the bottom, we are now required to use these descending devices. Do you use one, and which one do you use?
We keep the sequelizer on the boat, the pressure release one. Mm-hmm. And yes, we do use them. We do still do some venting. It just kind of depends on how our day is going.
All right. Well, nobody's on the phone but me and you. Nobody's listening. Tell me, do you believe the descending devices work?
Yes, we've proven that in Washington State. I mean, with the yellow eye up there, we actually got more fishing days by using them.
Really? That's excellent.
Mm-hmm.
That's excellent. Everybody in fact, that has been unanimous, everybody's favorite one to use. And Ray Rocher was telling me earlier on the podcast that he has seen videos of a snowy being released back down 300-400 feet and let go and did fine on camera. So that'll tell you right there.
Let me give you a true one. We were doing the testing up in Washington State, and we caught a yellow eye, and they tagged it.
Yes, sir.
And they released it, and about 2 months later, they caught it again. It had spawned, and it's just proven that they do survive.
Now, how deep?
The time to do it.
How deep would you say that fish came from, Kevin?
Oh, 300 feet at least.
Wow, that's impressive. Well, you sold me. I'm going to switch from the one I've been using to the sequelizer because I have not been happy with the one that he has to swim off of the pipe on. So it sounds to me like the sequelizer is the way to go. Cap, we appreciate it as always, and please tell me we can check with you next week.
We'll be back here next week with bells on.
I look forward to it. Captain Kevin Lanier from KC's Sport Fishing Adventure. Academy Sports and Outdoors' mission is to provide fun for the whole family by carrying all the best gear from top brands including Columbia, Yeti, Costa, Penn, Shimano, and so many more at prices that you're going to love. Whether you're planning on spending the day at the beach, hosting the friends in the backyard, reeling in a big fish, or gearing up for the game, Academy has a wide assortment of sports and outdoor products that will guarantee you that you're going to have fun out there. Hey, Academy has just opened their new store in Panama City, and look out, Tampa, here they come. You're next on the list. It's a dynamic and fun shopping experience while also offering convenient options such as buy online, pick up in store, and free shipping on most online orders over $25. When shopping at Academy, customers are going to be able to take advantage of some great in-store services. How about they'll assemble your grill for you or your bike? How about scope mounting, bore sighting, line winding and spooling, propane exchanges? They've got the pros to get it done, and the ability to purchase hunting and fishing licenses. With Academy's best price guarantee, if you find a better advertised price anywhere, not only will Academy match it, but they'll beat it by 5%. Until the new store in Tampa opens, you can shop online at academy.com or through Academy's mobile app. You can sign up for email alerts, receive digital ads, offers, and exchange with Academy's social media accounts. Academy Sports and Outdoors. Right stuff, low price, every day. Can't leave Florida without going out through the Panhandle. That's where one Captain Tyler Massey is large and in charge. Tyler, are you with us?
I'm here, Rick. How are you guys?
I'm doing great, buddy. I need a fishing report. How is it?
Yeah, we got one. Not much offshore going on. Still have some inconsistent weather. It just makes it tough to plan and go.
Sure,
go
it
offshore
does.
if it's going to be trolling or whatever. But inshore fishing has been pretty good still. So still the main thing we've been catching is sheepshead. They are starting to move towards our path. So we've been catching them on the bridges in the lower bays. But in the last couple of trips, we definitely have caught a few, not very good numbers, but around our jetties and around the path. So that's an excellent sign for us as far as our spring season is concerned.
Good. Now, you'd rate your sheepshead fishing season as pretty good so far?
Yeah, it's been excellent for us, and it's like I said, it's a little early. The bridge fishing has been good, which can be some years it's pretty tough. But everyone who's been trying has been catching a few sheepshead. There's been some black drums mixed in, some nice redfish, oversized and slot size. So it's been pretty consistent, and it's been a pretty good bite. So, as long as everything keeps this trend, I think our spring season, when they get, big schools in our pass, is going to be pretty good, and it hasn't been the best the last, 5 or 6 years, but,
right.
This is a good sign, I think.
What's your limit now, Tyler?
It is 12 inches, and it's 8 per person. On any of our fishing trips that we take customers out on, the most we'll ever keep is 10 per boat. I think 10's a good number of fish for 4 people or whatever. So we cut it off at 10 and go do something else. But the limit is 8 per person.
I got to tell you, Tyler, I am so pleased to hear that. I got frustrated, 5 or 6 years ago with the South Atlantic Council, and we set our own limits on the boat. Now, I don't mean that we keep a red snapper or anything. I don't mean it that way, but on our boat, take blackfin tuna, for example, a 20-pound blackfin tuna is a whole lot of tuna meat. So everybody on the boat gets one if we're that fortunate. If you want a second one, you better give me a pretty good reason, or else the tuna baits aren't going back out. And that's how we do it on our boat. When that second cobia hits the deck, which is now the law, I'm very thankful to see. But for years on my boat, it's been that second cobia hits the fish box, we're probably done doing that. So, and I'm certainly glad to hear that you feel the same way over there when talking about it. I would also recommend one of the coolest things that I think we've done over here with sheepshead is now 15 inches. There ain't a lot of meat on a 12-inch sheephead, Cap.
No, a 12-incher looks like a pinfish to me.
It does. It does. You're exactly right. So make your limit 15 inches so the people won't necessarily know, and you'll be catching a higher quality of fish. Tyler, that's a great report. We appreciate it as always. Hey, let me ask you, do you use one of those descending devices?
Yeah, actually I do. There's a couple of local weight manufacturer over here. He makes one that's just got like a bent piece of stainless on there, and it's got the weight on the bottom. We use that one. But I did actually just talk with some guys that are in the Descend Act. They're giving out those equalizers.
Right.
And I'm going to get one of those for this year.
Yeah, I'd like to get a sequelizer. I sure would. In fact, I've been using one that I haven't been real happy with, but it sounds to me like that one's a ticket. Cap, we appreciate it as always. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
I'll be here, Rick. We'll see you.
Okay, Captain Tyler Massey. And that wraps up our trip around the state this afternoon. It's been a lot of fun. We've had, unfortunately, a lot of the offshore guys have had to deal with a lot of weather. And it's just been, the thing about this time of year, guys, you can't say, hey, let's go fishing next Thursday. You can only say, let's go fishing tomorrow, because the odds of getting next Thursday aren't very good. It makes planning trips really hard. So you've almost got to have a crew that's got a flexible schedule so you can line them up and say, go, because especially where I fish here offshore Northeast Florida, you got to have a pretty good crew to pay that fuel bill too. Those fish are a long ways from home. It's 68 miles from my dock to where we put the outriggers out. So there's a lot of things that go into wintertime fishing that we don't have to deal with in the summertime. But the fishing seems to be pretty good. The boys are happy with the pompano fishing. The sheepshead fishing around the state looks like it's holding up pretty well. Not very happy with the cobia, but down in the Keys, when we talked last week with the guys there at Bud and Mary's, they said their cobia fishing was good, so maybe they're headed this way. But one thing for sure, we're going to be back next week with another report to find out what's happening where fishing off of Florida. Florida Sportsman Action Spotter is brought to you this week and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Tournament Master Chum. It's the best chum on earth, all right. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. By Young Boats, you want the finest in flats, bay, and offshore hybrids? You need to check out youngboats.com. By Castaway Hat Company, the hat that's helping save our seas. And by Academy Sports and Outdoors, right stuff, low price, every day. For Florida Sportsman Magazine, I'm Captain Rick Riles, and until next week, I'll see you on the rip.